Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. A very good evening to all of you. I hope all of you are doing absolutely fine. I welcome you all back to this weekly current affairs webinar. I hope all of you are doing absolutely fine. In this webinar, as you know, we take out the most important topics that were in the news throughout this week and we discuss in detail all those topics. That is why we are here for you once again. A very warm good evening to everyone. I hope my audio and the video, both of them are absolutely fine. If you can just give me a confirmation and we will begin quickly. Thank you so much. I do see a flurry of confirmations. I do see a flurry of heads up. Perfect. Thank you so much for confirming. Thank you so much for the confirmation. As I said, we have taken up the most relevant and the most important current affairs topics that were in the news this week. Before we do that, very quickly a reminder of where exactly can you find these classes on your app. I hope by now all of you have access to the Byju's Exam Prep app. Once you log into the app, you choose your official email ID and you select the IAS category to go to the IAS English section, which is where you will be able to find home, my classroom, and this is where the classes will appear. Now, having gotten that out of the way, let's quickly jump onto the topics that we will be covering today. These are the 6 topics that were in the news this week. These are the topics that we will be covering up. First, we'll be focusing on the OPEC plus oil cut production. We'll be discussing what is OPEC plus, why have they decided to cut down their oil production, what impact would it have on India, on Russia, on European countries, US, so on and so forth. Second topic that we'll take up will be the Nobel Prizes. As you know, a flurry of Nobel Prizes have been announced. We will mainly be focusing on the Nobel Prizes for peace and for chemistry. Although, yesterday the economics Nobel Prize also came out, so we'll have a slight discussion about that as well. The third topic that we'll take up is the unfortunate death of multiple children in Gambia due to the medical syrup. Its connection with India because it is an Indian pharmaceutical company that was producing these cough syrups, because of which we saw a lot of children death in Gambia. Then we will be focusing on election commission's power to adjudicate party symbol in cases of disputes. As you know, we have a situation where in Maharashtra, the Shiv Sena has been divided into 2 parts, both the sides claiming that they have the right to use the original symbol. So we'll discuss how exactly would that work, which party gets which symbol, and how is it that the Election Commission of India gets the power to decide that. Then we'll also be discussing virtual currency by the RBI. Virtual currency of the RBI has not been launched so far, but there was an article about this as well. The RBI plans to launch it very soon. So we'll be discussing what is virtual currency, how does it work, how different is it as compared to the usual currency that we have, or as compared to the cryptocurrency that we usually hear about. The last topic that we'll take up in today's webinar will be about the revamp of the parliamentary standing committees. So as you know, the parliamentary standing committees have been revamped, they have been formed again, and the opposition members don't seem to be very happy about it. The opposition members say that they have not been given their rightful representation. So we'll be discussing what exactly is that issue, what are parliamentary standing committees, how many members do we have, all those stuff will be discussed. So without any further ado, let's start with the very first topic, that is OPEC plus oil production cut. Now, let me very quickly ask you a very simple question. What exactly is OPEC? And you all are free to answer me in the chat. What exactly do we mean by OPEC? Okay, I have a lot of intelligent people. Some people saying cartelization. Let's talk about the full form of OPEC and then we'll go ahead whether it's a cartel or cartelization or not. Okay. Oil production and export nations. Okay. So OPEC stands for oil producing and exporting countries in simple terms. So these are oil producing and exporting countries. This is what OPEC stands for. Now, OPEC plus is a other group apart from the original group, that is OPEC. OPEC was a group of big oil producing nations that came together to decide how much oil would they produce every day or every year. The reason why they came together to decide how much oil will they produce is they decided to control the supply of oil in the market. See, whenever something is in limited quantity, the price of that commodity would automatically increase. On the other hand, if supply of something becomes too large and the demand becomes lower, then obviously the prices will come down automatically. So, in order to artificially decide what will be the price of oil in the international market, these OPEC nations formed a group to decide how much production should we have every single year from our nations so that they can actually control oil prices. Now, many people can call this cartelization. What is cartelization or what is cartel? It is the same thing. Cartelization means forming a group in such a manner that that particular group or the limited members of that group only have the power to decide how much money will then actually be made in the market. So, for example, these oil producing nations decide that next year let's cut down our oil production. Then what will happen? As a result of this, the oil prices will go up because everyone needs oil across the world. So there will be a fight who will get hands on the oil. Everyone will be willing to pay a higher price. This is where OPEC actually runs as a cartel. They try to monopolize the oil manufacturing, and that is how they try to decide how much money will be made and how much profit will be made out of this. Now, obviously, the non-oil producing nations, the nation that consume oil, such as India, India would not want that to happen. India would want a free flowing oil so that the prices actually drop down. Now, the reason why we are discussing this news is OPEC has decided to cut down on the oil supply. Now, why have they decided to do that? Give me one line answer. If I say OPEC has cut down oil production, in one single line, can you tell me what will happen as a result? If I just tell you the oil production of OPEC has reduced, as a result, now what will happen? What do you think? Yes, it's very simple. As many of you are saying, the oil price will increase. The oil price will increase. As simple as that. Now, if the oil prices increase, then what will happen as a result? Nations that import a lot of oil, such as India, will have a problem with it. On the other hand, tell me which of the countries are the ones which will be happy with this? Which countries will be happy with this? The countries that produce a lot of oil, that sell oil, that is a country that will be happy. For example, Russia will be happy with it. Russia, for example, will be very happy with it because Russia produces oil, Russia is selling oil. So for them, if they see that our oil is now getting sold at a higher price, it is obviously an advantage for all of them. So OPEC cutting down on the oil production or deciding to cut down on the oil production is bad news for some countries such as India, and it is good news for some other nations, the ones that actually produce oil. Now, if you look at the history of OPEC, and those who just joined, and as I told you earlier as well, OPEC stands for oil producing and exporting countries. If you look at the history of OPEC, there were very few countries that actually first came together. So in 1960, there were countries such as Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. Only 5 of these had actually come together. They decided that, okay, let's have a group because we are the ones that have most of the oil. Let's decide how much oil would be produced, how much oil would be not produced. Then after that, some other countries are also added. Now it has 13 members. It has Algeria, Angola, Congo, Guinea, Gabon, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Venezuela. The interesting part is Qatar now is not a part of it. Qatar said, no, 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 we will not be a part of it. Now, this is OPEC. Then there is OPEC plus. OPEC plus means apart from OPEC, there are some other nations also that produce certain oil. they were also now added. They were called OPEC plus. So OPEC plus has OPEC members, and apart from that, they also have Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Brunei, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Mexico, Oman, Russia, South Sudan, Sudan, etc. All these nations came together to make the group called OPEC plus. Let me ask you one very simple question and tell me if this is possible. Now, Saudi Arabia, let's assume that there are 10 countries. Let's assume there are 10 countries in a meeting, okay, that are sitting on the table, and they are OPEC countries. They decide that we have to cut down on the oil production so that the oil prices can increase. Now, do you think it is a very easy decision to make? It's actually not. It's a difficult decision. You know why? Because a fight is which country will cut down production and which country will not cut down production. Because, for example, if Saudi Arabia says, we will not cut down production, you should cut down production. If other country cuts down production and the prices go up, then Saudi Arabia, other countries that are not cutting down production, they will gain. Just understand this. If, for example, there are 10 countries, all of them are producing 100 liters of oil every day, okay? And they force one country that you stop producing oil, so that the total oil in the market is now 900 liter only. So the other countries will gain. So it is not easy for OPEC to take such a decision. Even in the past, whenever the OPEC has decided to take such a decision to cut down on oil production, they usually have fighting between the countries who will cut down the production, who will not cut down production. Let me ask you one more question. Is it possible that tomorrow OPEC countries say that we are stopping production of any oil? What do you think? Can it happen? Can it not happen? Is it possible? Is it practical, or is it not practical? Can the OPEC countries say that we are not producing any oil at all? Okay, I'm getting no. Those who are saying no, why are you saying no? Tell me this. Those who are saying no, let me ask you this. Why no exactly? Why do you think it is not possible or not practical? What is the reason behind it? Okay. Okay. So let me tell you the reason behind it. Many of you are thinking they can't cut oil production. Why? Because they will get into losses. That is what many of you are thinking. But the reason is something different. See, how the oil wells work, please understand this. The oil wells work in such a way that if you stop extracting oil from them, if you close down the oil well, then to actually start them again, it will require a huge amount of investment. Please understand something. If the countries stop extracting oil from the oil well, they shut down their oil well, they will have to spend huge amount of money to restart that oil well. That is why even if the countries are getting very low price in the market, it is not easy for any country, or almost impossible for any country, to shut down their oil production. Why? Because to keep it running is much cheaper. If they close down the oil wells once, it is very difficult for them to actually restart them once again. And this is where it becomes a problem for them. Now, OPEC Plus, as I said, is a group of those nations that produce most of the world's crude oil. About 80% of the crude oil's global oil reserves are actually coming from the OPEC Plus nations only. And that is why they are the ones who decide what will be the price of the crude oil in the international market. This is where they have a huge advantage as compared to any other nation across the world. Because oil is something that every country needs right now. Developing country, developed country, and this is what gives them a lot of advantage as compared to any other nation. Now, the news is that OPEC Plus has decided to cut down the oil production by 2 million barrels per day. Now, let me ask you this question. We just discussed that if oil production is cut down, prices will increase, right? Last week, this was announced. So have the prices increased already or not? What do you think? Have the prices increased already or not? When you go to petrol pump, have the prices increased already because of their oil cut? What do you think? Many people are saying yes. I hope that you went to your, okay. Many people are saying yes. Did you go to petrol pump or you're just saying yes randomly? Okay. Many people are saying yes. Some people are saying not yet. Okay. Understand this. If you are saying yes, they have not increased so far. Why? Because this is a step that will happen in the coming months. It's not as easy as closing the tap and opening the tap. If OPEC Plus said that we will cut down on oil production, doesn't mean it will happen automatically. This will happen in the coming months. So the oil price will increase in the coming months. It has not increased so far, so don't worry about that. So they are thinking, they have decided that they will cut down the production by 2 million barrels per day. So it will happen in the coming months. Now, what are the reasons for this? First reason, obviously, it is the oil producing nations that want to make as much money as possible. They think that cutting down on the oil production will give them a chance to earn as much money as possible, and that is why they are doing it. Now, there is also one other interesting view about this. At a time when Russia is actually facing so many sanctions from the Western nations, do you think Russia will like this step or Russia will not like this step? The oil cut, the oil production cut. What do you think? Russia will like this step or they will not like this step? What do you think? Russia will obviously like this step. Think of it from Russia's point of view. Russia is a major oil and gas producing nation. So for Russia, if the oil prices are increasing, it is in their benefit, it is in their advantage. So Russia would obviously like it. This is why European nations, this is why US, etc., are not liking this step. US, European nations, all of them put so many sanctions on Russia. But they all of them are now saying that because of this oil price rise, Russia will be able to earn money anyway. So this step taken by OPEC is not appreciated, especially because a few months back, the US President Joe Biden specially went to Saudi Arabia. He met the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. He had requested the Crown Prince not to cut down oil production. They said, yes, 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 we'll not cut down oil production. But they have actually decided against it and they have cut down oil production again. This is seen as a step against America. This is seen as a step against Europe and a step that will actually help Russia and the other oil producing nations. It will have a lot of impact on multiple nations. For example, for Europe, it will have a negative impact. Why? European winters are arriving. Because of European winters, winters in Europe are very, very severe, very, very harsh. So they require a lot of oil and gas to warm up their cities, to warm up their houses. So they have to spend more money. Also, because now Russia will be able to earn more money out of their petrol, it is going against Europe. Similarly for US. Now, US is a very interesting kind of a country. Try and understand this. US has 2 points of view here. Number one, US is also an oil producing nation. Please understand this. US is also an oil producing nation, meaning that if the prices actually go up, US will also have some advantage at one level, because the prices going up means they will also be able to sell oil at a costlier price. In fact, USA also sells oil to India. So for them, it is advantageous on one side. On the other side, US does not want Russia to earn money. So this increase in price will help Russia also. So US is in that kind of a middle situation where they know they will help some advantage, but they don't want the same advantage to go to Russia as well. So this is a problem. For India, obviously, it is a very, very bad news, because India has been one of the largest importers of crude oil. As you know, close to 85% of our need for crude oil is imported from outside the country. So we can't afford to have increased prices of oil. So it will have a negative impact on India in the long run. But the prices have not increased immediately. It will happen in the coming months. So the impact will be seen in the coming months. Now, let's quickly see if you can answer this question, and then I'll take up whatever question that you have asked from this particular topic. Read this question very carefully. Other than Venezuela, which one among the following from South America is a member of OPEC? Read this carefully. I will give you the options and 15 seconds of time. And your time has started. And your time is up. 31% people got the answer correct. This is C, Ecuador. Ecuador is also a member of OPEC amongst the South American nations apart from Venezuela. So I hope that you got this particular answer correct. This was the first topic that we had. Now, those who are asking, do we have to remember the member nations of these groups? Yes, unfortunately, the UPSC does ask about member nations of these groups very, very often. Now, let me quickly take up some of the questions that have been asked. One question is, please tell me which GS does this topic belong to? So it depends on what kind of a question is asked. If, for example, the question on this topic is asked with relation to the energy requirements, then it becomes a GS3 topic. If it is asked with respect to economics, how would India's current account deficit be impacted because of this decision, then it becomes an economic question. That means GS3. On the other hand, if it is asked in terms of international relations, how would India's relationship, for example, be impacted with Saudi Arabia or these kind of nations with such a decision, then it becomes a IR question, GS2. So it depends on what kind of a question is asked. Depending upon that, it can be a topic from GS2 also, it can be a topic from GS3 as well. Okay. Then I have a question. Why can't they share the production cut equally? It's easy for us to say that they can just share the production cut equally, but it's not that easy to decide. For example, no country wants to, at the end of the day, cut down or basically go any against the interest of their own people. Saudi Arabia, for example, who consider itself as the big brother of this OPEC group, they don't want to reduce any oil production. They force other nations to do that. No nation would want to do that. Everyone wants other members to do it. No one wants the pie to be divided equally. So ideally, yes, they should cut equally in equal proportion. But smaller nations say, we anyways produce so little petrol, you cut it, you produce so much petrol. So it depends on the internal dynamics of that. Then I have a question. Why these countries will not stop extracting oil? They will not stop extracting oil because of two major reasons. First, their entire economy is dependent on it. So if they stop extracting oil, then how will they earn money? So they can't stop extracting oil. Secondly, if they stop extracting oil or if they cut down on their oil production, once the oil wells are closed, it is very expensive to open them up. So they can't stop extracting oil completely. Then I have a question. Can you please clarify? Reasons for oil cut still not clear. See, reasons for oil cut is very simple. When they cut oil production, the prices of oil will increase in the market, so they will earn more money. As simple as that. For example, why is it that some traders start hoarding of onions so that the onion supply in the market gets reduced, onion prices increase, so they all get benefit out of it. That is why they cut down the production. That the same thing that happened with oil as well. Then I have a question. Even before this limit cut, OPEC countries produce below the existing limit, so there won't be much difference, right? No, not the same case. See, when you say they produce below their limit, that meant that they had the capacity or they could actually increase their production. Now that they have decided that they will cut down on the production significantly, that will automatically have an impact on the supply. So it is going to have some impact in the long run in the prices. Then I have a question. Why would OPEC countries go against US and European nations? I mean, US has a key role in West Asian stability, and Europe also helps them a lot in trade. See, at the end of the day, every country takes their decisions based on their own national interest. Oil producing nations know that there's no substitute to oil right now in the entire world. So they can afford to take whatever decision they want, even if it angers US or Europe, that doesn't really matter to them. Because at the end of the day, what will the US and Europe do? It is their oil, they can produce whatever they want. So they know they are in an advantageous position because they have something that the entire world wants, that is oil. So that is why if we are understand something, when countries take decision, they don't really take decision thinking what is right, what is wrong. They take decision what is best for their interest, as simple as that. They are not concerned about whether we promise something, they're helping us, they're not helping us. No. For their own national interest, whatever is good for them, as simple as that. Anyway, I'll quickly take up last question, then we'll move ahead. Now, one last question from this topic: why WTO don't restrict monopoly? See, WTO anyways can't do anything. Understand something. WTO is not an organization whose decisions are binding on anyone. So WTO, the concept of WTO here does not really come in. So don't really think about why WTO can't do this, because WTO comes in terms of trade relations when there's a trade agreement that is signed. OPEC does not have any trade agreement as such with some other nations. They're deciding on themselves how much oil they will produce, how much oil they will not produce. Also, when you talk about monopoly, see, monopoly of oil is not something that people decide on their own. Some countries have oil, some countries don't have oil. So monopoly of oil is from the nature itself. WTO can't do anything regarding that. Anyway, let's come back now. The next article or the next topic that we'll take up very quickly is the Nobel Prizes that were announced this week in a series of announcements one by one. Rather than going into all of this, we will discuss a few of them. We will mainly discuss the Nobel Peace Prize, and we'll also discuss a bit about chemistry. The economics one was also announced yesterday, so we'll just do a brief mention of that as well. We have the Nobel Prize for Literature also announced, for physics also it has come out, but we'll mainly be focusing on peace and chemistry. Now, I'm sure all of you would have read about the Nobel Peace Prizes, the announcements that were made. Understand something about the Nobel Prizes. Now, there are many people who criticize the Nobel Peace Prizes, and there are many people who actually support this. The reality is, and this is not wrong to say, that Nobel Peace Prizes also somewhere are kind of politically motivated. It's not wrong to say that they are politically motivated, meaning that usually you will see the winners of the Nobel Peace Prizes are those people who are seen in good light by the Western nations. So people who are favored by the Western nations are usually the one who actually wins such kind of prizes. Over here also it is said that this year's Nobel Peace Prize is actually a statement made on the Ukraine-Russia war. Not to say that the people who won or the organizations who won did not deserve it, they deserved it, but it's more of a statement that has been made on Russia. Nobel Peace Prize, for example, this year is shared between three parties. One, Ales Bialysky. He is a democracy activist in Belarus. Then there are two organizations that have been named. One, Memorial Organization of Russia, and the other organization that has been named is Center for Civil Liberties of Ukraine. So there are three parties that have together been named in the Nobel Peace Prize, one individual and two organizations. One from Belarus, one from Ukraine, one from Russia. Now let's focus on Belarus for a bit. Belarus is a very interesting country. It is in fact the last remaining dictatorship of Europe. Belarus still has a dictator. His name is Alexander Lukashenko. Alexander Lukashenko has been ruling over Ukraine for over 25 years. He has been ruling over Ukraine with the support of Vladimir Putin. Anyone who says anything against him, anyone who wants to fight elections against him, all of them are arrested, all of them disappear. In this case, in Belarus, Ales Bialysky has been raising his voice against the Belarus president. That is why his contribution for many, many years has been regarded as extremely vital in trying to bring back democracy in Belarus once again. This is why his name here has been suggested as a winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. Then there are organizations called Memorial of Russia, and there's an organization called Center for Civil Liberties. This is what the Nobel Peace Prize this time is. As you know, the Nobel Prize is named on Alfred Nobel. When Alfred Nobel passed away, apparently he wrote in his will that whatever money I have earned, whatever property I have left, please make a prize on behalf of me, make a trust and give a prize to people in different fields. Also remember, the Nobel Prize that we actually see in all these different fields, many of them have different stories. I'll give you an example. For example, the Nobel Prize in Economics is actually different. Nobel Prize in Economics is not very old. Nobel Prize in Economics did not start with Alfred Nobel. This actually started with the Central Bank of Sweden. Central Bank of Sweden, for example, had decided that we will be the one that will actually start the Nobel Prize for Economics. So there are different stories about it. Different Nobel Prizes are given in different fields. Most of them actually started from the Alfred Nobel will. The Nobel Prize which is given is worth about $9,000 or $900,000, which is about $9 lakh. This is a prize that is given. Now, there is a very interesting story about Alfred Nobel. Now, I don't know if the story is true or not, but please do hear this story. So there is a story about Alfred Nobel. Alfred Nobel, do you know what did he invent? Any idea? Alfred Nobel was the inventor of what? Any idea? Can you please tell me? Inventor of what? Yes, he was the inventor of dynamite. He was the inventor of dynamite. So there's a story about Alfred Nobel. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. So the story is that one day when he was alive, there was a rumor that he has died. Okay. There was a rumor that he has died. Now, he heard this rumor, but he did not tell anyone that I am alive. Why? He wanted to know how people will remember him after his death. So he sat in his house. He did not meet anyone. He wanted people to believe that, yes, I have died. Next day, when the newspaper came in, the newspaper had a heading that is, the inventor of death has died, because he invented dynamite. So the story is that the headline was, inventor of death has died. This is the headline that he heard, and he was very heartbroken with it, because he thought, I've made such a great discovery of dynamite, but then people will remember me by Mr. Death, or the inventor of death. So he got so moved by that, he got so saddened by that, that he decided, after I die, I will start something kind of a award, so that people who do great work in science and peace, etc., are given this award. That is why I wrote this in this will. Now, I am not saying the story is true, but this is a story that has been heard many times. This is how this story goes. So these are the three people who have been given the Nobel Peace Prize. As I said, Ales Bialiatski, the person who's from Belarus, Memorial Organization from Russia, it's a human rights organization in Russia. Then we have the Center for Civil Liberties that has been working in Ukraine. All these three have been regarded as organizations and people who have worked in the field of bringing peace. Now, the Center for Civil Liberties, as I said, is an organization of Ukraine, founded in 2007 to promote human rights and democracy in Ukraine especially. Ever since Russia has invaded Ukraine, this organization has come in the news a lot more. They are documenting all the war crimes that Russians are doing in Ukraine, that the Russian forces are doing in Ukraine. So that is why this organization has also been named in the Nobel Peace Prize category. The Ales Bialiatski, who is from Belarus, as I said, Belarus is a very, very important place, the last remaining dictatorship of Europe. And I'll tell you an incident about what happened in Belarus just a few months back. I think it was, if I remember correctly, I think it was in the beginning of this year, or I think just 1 year ago. So the story is that Alexander Lukashenko, that is the president of Belarus, he is such a dictator that one of the time there was a civilian airplane going over Belarus from one country to the other country, not even landing in Belarus. But he actually sent his fighter jets. These fighter jets forced the airplane to land in Belarus. One person who was the critic of Lukashenko, who he was taken out of the plane, and then the plane was allowed to leave. This person was then arrested and he's in the prison in Belarus. These kind of stories are true about Alexander Lukashenko, who is still a dictator in Europe, and he has been able to stay in power because of the support of Vladimir Putin. That is why you see, even when the Russian war of Ukraine started, Russian forces enter Ukraine through Belarus only. So Belarus has been that place which has allowed the Russians to actually put a lot of pressure on Ukraine. So he actually has been in the news because of that. He is the one who has been raising voices. He is in the prison right now because dictators obviously would not want anyone criticizing them. So he's in the prison right now. So he was not able to take his prize as such. Now, the Nobel Prize in Chemistry also was given for a very interesting discovery. I'll just share very small detail about that. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry was given to three people. That is Caroline R. Bertozzi, Morton Meldal, and K. Barry Sharpless. These three people were given the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for something called click chemistry. Now, there are two things very important here. First important thing, Barry K. Sharpless has actually won the Nobel Prize second time. Please do remember. This is his second Nobel Prize win. He actually won a Nobel Prize earlier as well. Now, his earlier Nobel Prize was in 2001 for developing first chiral catalyst. This time they have won the Nobel Prize for click chemistry. Now, what is click chemistry? Let's try and understand this very, very easily. Click chemistry in very simple terms means, usually in science, scientists try to mix and combine two or more than two elements together, right? They try to combine these elements, make bonds of different types, make strong bonds so that these elements can combine into something else and they can work differently. This is where click chemistry comes. Click means, see, when you actually, let's say there's a pen and there's a cap. When you actually put pen in the cap, the sound is click. Have you realized that? When you put the cap on the pen, there is a click sound. Click sound means it has perfectly gone into that particular place. This is called click. So click chemistry also says that in order to ensure that some elements combine properly or combine perfectly, there has to be that kind of a structure that will be formed so that these two elements come together and click. This is called, in very simple terms, click chemistry, meaning that molecular building blocks can very quickly, efficiently snap together so that the bond that is made between them is extremely, extremely strong. This is their discovery, which is called click chemistry, because of which these people have won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Now, the concept of click chemistry, as I said, was coined by Mr. Sharpless only around the year 2000. He said that instead of forcing carbon atoms, rather than doing that, we should rather focus on building blocks of organic matters. They are the ones who can actually combine together much more easily as compared to looking for carbon bonds. Please do remember, whenever these Nobel Prizes are given, they are not really given for something that happened very recently. Whenever you see any Nobel Prize given for physics, chemistry, medical sciences, etc., you will see the discoveries for which the prizes are given are 8, 10, 20 years old. This is how much time it takes for these kind of discoveries to be realized and recognized at the international stage. Similarly, the term click chemistry was first seen in the year 2000. It is only in 2022 that we are realizing it. The most important thing with regards to click chemistry is that it will have multiple applications in the form of medicine, especially how to target and block pathogens in cells. And that is why these are the people who have been chosen for the Nobel Prize. Now, as I said, there are other Nobel Prize also that have been announced this week. There was in economics that was announced yesterday. Again, 3 people have been chosen for the economic Nobel Prize. One of them, the former chief of the US Federal Reserve, meaning that equivalent to RBI governor. The Nobel Prize in Economics has been given why? For their study. The 3 people have conducted the study, impact of failing of big banks. What impact failing of big banks have in a society, in an economy. That is why the Economics Nobel Prize has been given. Anyway, let's come back. Let's try and answer this particular question. Read this carefully. Consider the following organizations. Which of these have won the Nobel Peace Prize? It's a difficult question. I'm giving you the options. Your time has started. Ten more seconds. And your time is up. Difficult question, right? 32% people got this right. This is actually D. All of these are organizations that have won the Nobel Peace Prize sometime or the other. In fact, in the past 10 years only, these organizations have won the Nobel Peace Prize. Please do remember, Nobel Peace Prize is one of those prizes that are usually, not always, usually given to organizations. They are given to individuals as well. Kailash Satyarthi, for example, won it. So they are given to individuals as well. But most of the times you will see that for Nobel Peace Prizes, organizations are chosen. All these organizations have won the Nobel Peace Prize sometime or the other. So the correct answer over here would be D. All of those who got it by chance, great. All of those who did not get it, don't worry. Let me quickly take up a few questions. I think the question that I have is from the last topic only, so I'll quickly take those up as well. One question I have is, why can't we raise our oil import from Russia? See, we are importing as much oil as we can from Russia. It's not that we are leaving oil on the table. So whatever Russia is offering us, we are taking it. So don't think that we are not taking as much oil as we can from Russia. Then I have a question, why does an oil market have regulatory body like who and its dumping, like anti-dumping rules? See, understand something. Regulatory markets, etc., will only work for something which is available everywhere. Oil is something that is only produced in a handful of nations. Why would those nations allow you to make a regulatory body? Understand something. For example, if there are 10 people only who are billionaires, they will decide themselves how will they function, how will they not function. If there are 10, 20 nations only that produce oil, why would they allow anyone else to have a regulatory body? They say that OPEC is their regulatory body only. They don't allow anyone else to make rules for themselves. And they know that the entire world is dependent on oil. So whatever they say will have to be accepted no matter what. Then I have a question, why OPEC and OPEC Plus are different when their interests are the same? So OPEC was made first, then other oil producing nations said that we also have oil, so they were also included, it became OPEC Plus. Interests are the same. OPEC are the original groups that produce more oil, that's it. Then I have a question, do we have to remember the names of these Nobel laureates? There are two ways to look at it. Usually UPSC is not really, UPSC usually does not ask questions with regards to names of individuals. So usually you will see individual name based questions are not asked. However, there are some forms in which Nobel Prize winners, etc., have been asked in the past. So I would say, to be on the safer side, please try and remember those as much as you can. But again, I can't force you, because Nobel Prize, these kind of questions have been asked with individual names. Then I have a question, can you explain click chemistry? Yes, click chemistry simply means that molecules can combine together even without having any carbon bonds, if they have adequate structure, which can work much more effectively as compared to forming of any carbon bonds. So at a molecular level, if the elements or if the molecules have a perfect structure that fits into them, they can work much in a much better manner with many more applications as compared to making carbon bonds. That is a concept of click chemistry. Okay, perfect. Sorry for this. I have a bit of cold actually. That is why I'm coughing. Anyway, let's move on. The third topic that we have is an unfortunate news that has been discussed a lot this week. That is the death of multiple children in the African nation of Gambia due to a medical syrup. Now, how does it impact us or why is it connected to India? Let's try and understand that. The news came out. A lot of people passed away in the African nation of Gambia. The common thread was that all these children were actually consuming a medical syrup that is made by an Indian pharmaceutical company. This is why the focus and the limelight came to India. Now, the interesting part here is this medical syrup that the children in Gambia were consuming, it's made by an Indian pharmaceutical company, but it is not sold in India. It is made by an Indian pharmaceutical company specially for the purpose of export only. So it is not consumed by the people or by the children in India, number one. Secondly, WHO also has raised concerns over it. WHO has said that how is it that if the syrup is not sold in India, how is it is being exported? Thirdly, the other thing that you have to understand here is India is a major exporter of medicines throughout the world, especially in Africa, especially the generic medicines. The generic medicines that do not cost a lot of money, they are produced in India in huge numbers and they are mainly exported to Africa and African nations. So this India exporting something to African nation in the form of medicine is not new, but yes, this kind of an unfortunate incident, yes, that is new. As I said, Gambia government says that there is a surge in children death due to cough syrups that are made in India specifically. Now, let's try and focus on what are the regulatory norms in India. What are different bodies? What are different laws in India that decide on the export of these medicines from India? Let's try and understand this. There is something called CDSCO. This stands for Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. Standard Control Organization. So any pharmaceutical company in India that is manufacturing any medicine has to take this certification from CDSCO. This is a regulatory body that looks into the quality of the medicines, looks into the quality of anything related to pharmaceutical companies. It includes medical devices also and cosmetics as well. Now, apart from that, in order to export the medicines from India, exporters also require a certain kind of a license. Now, this license is given when they submit their samples, and those samples are also tested. After that, the government of India gives them the export licenses, and the pharmaceutical companies from India can then export these medical products to Africa and to the other parts of the world. Now, these products, as I said earlier as well, understand something. India exports a lot of medicine, but mostly to Africa, mostly to South America, Asia, etc. Most of our medicines that are exported from India do not go to Europe or US. The reason being that in Europe, in US, their standards, their safety standard, their norms are much, much higher as compared to India. That is why Indian markets or Indian medicines do not really find a market in Europe and do not really find a market in most of the Western nations. In Africa, etc., they do find a market because their standards of clearing these medicines, etc., are much, much lower as compared to India. And that is why These African nations are a major destination for India's manufacturing. Also, this is not the first time that something like this has actually happened. Pharmaceutical companies in India have been at the center of controversy like this. For example, made in pharmaceutical drugs, for example, Metomin, etc., all of these have been found to be substandard. So, medicines not being found to be at the apt level, medicines having side effect on the people that are consuming them is nothing new for some companies in India, and that is unfortunately what has happened. The WHO, that is the World Health Organization, has issued an alert saying that these medicines have killed 66 children in Gambia, which is a West African nation, one of the poorest nations in the entire world. As per WHO, the amount of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol are very high in this particular syrup. So this is a syrup made specially for children. It's a cough syrup kind of a thing. This is causing kidney injury in children. It is actually leading to abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, etc. The company says that these products are not sold in India and are only exports from India. That is why the Indian population does not really have to worry about anything. Now, this does not augur well, or this kind of a situation does not augur well at a time when India is trying to make our country a manufacturing hub. See, when the government says that we want everything to be manufactured in India, we want everything to ensure that the highest quality is actually manufactured in India, all of that has to be reflected in the quality of the product. If you have a situation where the Indian medicines or Indian pharmaceutical products are harming people or are taking away lives of the people, that goes against the entire idea of India trying to be a manufacturing hub. And that is why it is very, very problematic. The other sad part here is, understand something, if such kind of a thing would have happened in a Western nation, just imagine if some Indian product would have been exported to US or Europe, and just imagine if anyone would have died because of that. Can you imagine the kind of pressure India would have been under and the kind of diplomatic problems that we would have had? They would have been very, very different. Because this is an African nation, because this is one of the least developed nations, yes, people's lives have been lost, but because the country that we're talking about is Gambia and not a major country, this is not as much in the news as it should have been. This is a much more serious news as compared to what it is taken right now. A few years back, I'll give you an example. A few years back, there were certain fruit flies. Do you know what is fruit fly? Have you heard of this fruit fly? Have you heard of fruit fly? So fruit fly is a very common kind of an insect. A few years back, India exported some mangoes to Europe. So India exports a lot of fruits, mangoes, especially to Europe. In some of the mangoes, some fruit flies were found. Fruit flies are usually very small insect. They were found. As a result of which, just because some fruit flies were found, Europe actually banned the import of mangoes from India. No one got hurt, no one got killed, no one got ill, nothing. But just because they found certain fruit flies, they actually banned the import of mangoes from India. That is what Europe did. And India went to WTO, India requested them time and time again to lift the ban. But because this is an African nation, unfortunately, not a lot has been discussed and made out in the news as it should have been. Now, if you look at drug regulations in India, there are certain laws that you must know. We have the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. They have the responsibility, or they have given the responsibility to center and the state for regulation of drugs and cosmetics. They are the ones who provide different types of regulations of how the medicines can be manufactured and of what kind. Then, as we discussed, we have CDSCO. This is Central Drug Standard Control Organization. They are the ones who regulate new drugs, clinical trial standards, etc. They are the ones who finally approve the licenses to manufacture the products in India or not. This organization also regulates the export of drugs in India. Any manufacturer with certification from CDSCO can export drug outside India. So do remember, even if it has to be manufactured in India or if it has to be exported outside India, CDSCO is the one that has to give its certification. Then we have the Drug Controller General of India. The Drug Controller General of India is DCGI. He is the head of department of the CDSCO. So CDSCO is the organization. Head of that is called the Drug Controller General of India. They are the ones who work in the CDSCO to decide on the different standards to be maintained for manufacturing of pharmaceutical medicines and how they can be stored outside the country. On that note, let's see if you can read this question and you can solve this. Read this very carefully. I'll give you enough time. Read this carefully. If you have read it, let me start your 30 seconds of time. Your 30 seconds start now. Please ignore the word rubber. Please ignore the word rubber here. Thank you, Anchal, for pointing it out. You can ignore the word rubber and similar. Perfect. 53% people got this right. This is C. The correct answer here is C. All the three given statements here are correct. All the three given statements here are correct about the CDSCO, about the Director Drugs Control General of India, and the DCGI being the one who sets standards for manufacturing, sales, import. We discussed all these three statements right here. Don't pay attention to the word rubber. It's a misspelling here. Don't worry. Anyway, so the correct answer here would be C. This was topic number 3. adjudicate party symbol disputes. Now, let's try and understand something very quickly. Also, before I go that, I'll just make a very quick remark on the last topic. Just because children have died because of that medical syrup, let's not make an assumption that medicines are not checked in India, that the standard is not maintained, that Gambia did not check medicine. That is not the case. India exports humongous amounts of medicines throughout the entire world. Yes, these kind of incidents are unfortunate, but let's not assume that that is the norm. This is an exception. Such kind of exceptions can happen with other nations as well. So it's not just the same with India. Okay, so it's not basically the same. So let's not assume that the standards are very, very bad. Okay, and one more. Are these different levels of safety standards of drugs between India and Europe, US harmful for Indian medical system? Also, why are these standard different? Medicine should be safest for humans. See, I'll let me give you another example, okay, and you can understand what I'm trying to talk about here. Let's assume that the water that comes to your home, okay, the water that you drink, that water, if it is being supplied from municipality, let's assume it is not clean. Okay, let's take an assumption it is not clean. Okay, now TDS is a method how you measure how clean your water is. Now let's assume you buy an RO machine, Kent RO or this Aqua Purifier, whatever. You buy these machines and this machine costs you 20,000 rupees. Okay, and in this 20,000 rupees, they bring down the TDS of the water to 100. It is said that anything below 150 is good. Anything below 150 is safe. So you buy a 20,000 rupee machine and it has reduced the TDS of your water to 100. It was earlier 300, now it is 100. Okay. Now some other company comes in and says, Microsoft says that I have produced one more RO. It will cost you 20 lakh rupees and it will reduce the TDS to 10 only. Then Elon Musk says in Tesla we have produced one more machine, RO machine, that will purify your water even more. It will bring down the TDS to only one. That machine is 20 crore. Now tell me, which one will you buy? TDS is just a method to measure how pure the water is. Which one will you buy? Will you buy 20,000 one, 20 lakh one, or 20 crore one? You will most probably buy the 20,000 one. Okay. Now which one will Mukesh Ambani buy? What do you think? Which one will Mukesh Ambani buy? Mukesh Ambani will buy the 20 crore one. So do you think the safety standard, he loves his children more than your parents love you? No. Your parents love you also the same as Mukesh Ambani loves his children. But your parents can only afford this much. Mukesh Ambani can afford this much. As simple as that. Safety standards are same for everyone. Everyone wants their children to be the safest. Right? Now let's come to the same example. When Gambia imports a medicine from India, and they want a medicine that is safe for their children, but they can't take such an expensive medicine. They think that this is also fine. This is the case that has happened. So let's not compare. Why is it that European standards are so good? Why can't we all be at the European levels? Then I ask you the same question. Why is it that you can't buy a 20 crore RO? Why do you think that no, 20,000 is fine? There are cars in the Indian market that have 7 airbags. But you only buy a car with 3 or 4 airbags or 2 airbags. Why? 7 airbags is so much better. Don't you love yourself? You go and spend more money, buy 7 airbags car, 10 airbags. You don't do that. Why? Because you think that no, I can't afford that. So the same is the case here. Let's not, if some unfortunate event has happened, let's not assume that the safety standards are bad. Safety standards are good. But again, there are levels of how much you can afford. As simple as that. Okay? Anyway, now let's come back. The next topic that is in the news is the Election Commission's power about party symbol disputes. Now, the reason why this is in the news is because of what is happening in Maharashtra. As you know, in Maharashtra, the Shiv Sena, the political party, got divided into 2 parts. How? As you know, most MLAs from Shiv Sena led by Eknath Shinde, they left the party. They said that we are making a new party. Uddhav Thackeray said that no, mine is the original party. So there's a fight between the parties. The fight is which of these two groups will get to use the original election symbol, the original party symbol. Why? Because there's a lot of value of that symbol. People remember it, people vote for it. Now, the question is, when we have this kind of a dispute about election symbols, who decides this? The Election Commission of India decides. Usually, Election Commission of India sees which side has more support, which side has more MLAs or MPs. They are usually the ones that are given the symbol, usually. If Election Commission cannot decide, then what do? They usually freeze the symbol. That is what they have done in this case also. They freeze the symbol, meaning that Election Commission says to both the sides, take a new symbol for some time. For some time, go and take a new symbol, go and take a new name, and then we will decide. So this is what has happened. We will be discussing what are the powers given to the Election Commission of India to decide on these kind of disputes about the election party symbol. Now, I'm sure in Indian polity, all of you have read about political parties. All of you would have read about recognized parties and registered parties. As you know, if you want to open up your own political party in India, the first step is to register a political party. Do you know that? The first step is you go to Election Commission of India, register your political party, do all the paperwork, etc. For registering a political party, you don't need to fight elections. You just do the paperwork. Once that is done, next step is you fight the elections. You fulfill the criteria of getting certain seats, getting certain votes. Then you become a recognized political party. If you're a recognized political party, then your election symbol is fixed for you. No one else will be given your election symbol. Now, if there is a dispute about election symbols, two sides saying that we want the same symbol, then who decides? Election Commission of India decides. How? There is something called Election Symbols Reservation and Allotment Order 1968. This order empowers Election Commission to recognize political parties and allot symbols as well. They are the ones who will be allotting the symbols if there is a dispute. Now the question is, and many of you have already asked in the chat also, can the political parties go to the court? The answer is yes, they can. In fact, that is what happened in this case also. Uddhav Thackeray did go to the court as well. So if after the Election Commission of India's decision about which side will get which symbol, if the parties are not happy, if they still want to fight, then they can go to the court if they are not satisfied with this. The Election Commission of India, as I said, how do they decide? They usually see which party has more support, which side has more MPs or more MLAs. If they can't decide, what is the last option? They freeze it usually. They freeze the party symbol and they ask the groups, as it has happened in Maharashtra, they ask both the groups to have new names for one or two elections, to have new symbols for one or two elections, and then they can fight. They ask those groups not to do anything with the old symbol, freeze it, and continue with the new symbols. That is what has happened. Now, the role of judiciary also is important. As I said, yes, the Election Commission of India decides on the party symbol, but if the parties are not happy with it, they have the right to go to the judiciary. They have the right to go to the Supreme Court of India. Now, mostly, whenever there is a split in a political party, the Supreme Court has actually given multiple judgments in this case. Supreme Court has said time and time again that Election Commission of India will decide on the concept of majority, meaning that Election Commission of India will decide which party has a majority support. I'll give you an example. Let's assume that Shiv Sena has 40 MLAs in total in all the states and 20 members of parliament. So Supreme Court said that Election Commission should see majority of them are supporting which group 1 or group 2. That should be given the symbol. This is a guideline that the Supreme Court has given. Although it depends on the Election Commission of India how they want to go ahead and implement this, but usually Supreme Court has said that test of majority should be actually organized and see which side or which of the two groups has more support amongst the MPs and amongst the MLAs. This is how it actually works. Now, how does the Election Commission of India decide? If I ask you this question, can the Election Commission take up the matter suo moto also? Can they take up the matter suo moto? No, they cannot. Suo moto means by itself. Suo moto means by itself. Means, can the Election Commission itself say, without anyone going to Election Commission, can the Election Commission itself say, no, we will take up the matter and we will decide? No. Election Commission has to wait if they are asked this question or not. So they will only take up the matter if at least one of the party approaches the Election Commission of India. Then the Election Commission of India will ask for evidence. Evidence means show us how many people support you, how many of your MPs and MLAs, etc. support you, and after that support, tell us if you or how is it that you are the original party and other is not the original party. Now, election symbols are extremely important in India. Let me ask you a simple question here and you can tell me in the chat. Can two or more than two parties in India have the same election symbol or not? What do you think? Can two or more than two political parties have the same election symbol or not? I'm getting half yes and half no. Yes, no, never. Okay, I'm getting more no's than yes. Okay, I'm getting more no's than yes. The answer is yes, they can. And I'll give you multiple examples. I'll give you multiple examples of political parties having the same election symbol. Now, please try and understand. I'll tell you how it happens. Please understand this. Please understand. You can stop writing in the chat. Once a political party becomes a national recognized party, please remember, once a political party becomes a national recognized party, then their symbol will not be given to anyone. Like BJP is a national recognized party. So BJP's symbol will not be given to anyone. However, if let's assume that one party is a state party, one party is a state recognized party, let's say there's a state recognized party in Uttar Pradesh, then their symbol will not be given to anyone in Uttar Pradesh. But outside Uttar Pradesh, other parties can get that symbol. Outside Uttar Pradesh, other parties can get that symbol. If you're a recognized party across the country, then your symbol will not be given to anyone. If you're a recognized party in one state, then in that state your symbol is fixed for you. But in other places, first come, first serve will happen and the symbol may be given to others. I'll give you some examples. There is a party called BSP. If you are from North India or Uttar Pradesh, you would know BSP. That is Bahujan Samajwadi Party. They have election symbol of elephant. Now, if you are from Assam, you might have heard about Assam Gan Parishad. Assam Gan Parishad, Assam. They also have the elephant symbol. Both of them have the elephant symbol. So it's not that they can't have the same symbol. Two parties cannot have the same symbol in one single state. Please do remember this. I'll repeat myself. The two parties or two political parties can have the same election symbol, but not in one single state. Within one state, there cannot be two political parties with one same election symbol. There are multiple examples of how different parties across the country have been working on the same symbol. Now, Election Commission of India, and I'll give you more examples, just give me a bit of minutes. As I said, Election Commission of India decides which party will get which particular symbol depending upon mainly the majority, etc. Now, it is not only about the symbol. Please understand something. This fight between two groups of Shiv Sena, it is not just about party symbol. It is also about money and property, etc. I'll give you an example. So let's assume that Shiv Sena, has 500 crore rupees of donations. Political parties get a lot of donations, right? From corporates and other people. They keep on donating money. Let's assume Shiv Sena has 500 crore rupees left in donation. Now, if they are dividing into two groups, which group will take all the donation with them? That also has to be decided. So it is not just a fight about the party symbol. It is also about party donation, party money, the money that is left in their accounts, who will be the owner of that. All that has to be decided. It is not just about the symbol. Symbol is a fight that they are saying on TV that we want our symbol. Symbol is important. But apart from symbol, that is also important. How much money, infrastructure, all the official infrastructure of the party, who will take that. Now, as I said, there are multiple examples of political parties running on the same symbol. There is Bahujan Samajwadi Party, Assam Gan Parishad. Then we have Federal Party of Manipur and DMK having the same kind of a symbol. Samajwadi Party and Jammu Kashmir Panthers Party also having the same symbol. So there are multiple parties that have the same symbol. But again, not within the same state. There is one question very quickly I'll just take up that I had in second point. What if Bahujan Samajwadi Party, BSP, fights election in Assam, then what will happen? So if BSP fights election in Assam, then for Assam specially, they have to take another symbol from Election Commission of India. If BSP in this case is fighting election in Assam, then what will happen? For Assam specially, they have to take a new election symbol from the Election Commission of India. That is what happens. Okay. On that note, let's quickly see if you can solve this question. Please read this carefully. I'll give you your options. I hope all of you have read this. Perfect. Your time starts now. Okay, 76% people are correct. Good job. This is D. All these three given statements are absolutely correct. We read about all these three statements in this topic. Before we go on to topic number 5, let me quickly take up a few questions once again. There's a question from the previous topic. India also needs drug regulatory like FDA, and Indian government is not taking appropriate action. No. See, US has FDA, so we have the CDSCO. Let's not assume US has FDA. We don't have that. We have a different organization by the same kind of a function. CDSCO does the same kind of a thing in India. As I said, one bad incident should not develop that kind of a thought in your mind that everything is now bad, every medicine is bad in India. That is not the case. So India also have FDA kind of a system, like the CDSCO, simple. Then I have a question why India did not use this medicine. The company is not selling this in India for whatever reason. Then can final appeal for election take up by Supreme Court? Yes, they can. What would happen if the right holder of the party has less MLAs because of any reason? Then what would happen? You are saying he or she is the right holder of the party. Right holder of the party will be decided by number of MLAs, MPs only. So let's not assume someone is a right holder, because when you assume someone is a right holder of a party, other person is not, then you have already decided the judgment. So let's not assume who is the right holder, who is not. That is in fact what we have to decide by seeing who supports how many people. Then I have a question. If two political parties having same symbols from different states, now if they become national party, who will hold the symbol? So these kind of situational circumstantial things election commission decides. So if it does happen that two parties having same symbol in different states all of a sudden together become national party in one single year, then what will happen? Election commission decides. I am not the election commission. So if it does happen, we will see. That is what we discuss now. Everything regarding symbols, etc., election commission of India decides eventually. Then I have a question. What if later the local party becomes a national party later? Nothing. When the state party becomes a national party, then their symbol is reserved for them throughout the country, as simple as that. Then I have a question. How would symbol determine the distribution of funds to party? So if one of the two groups gets the official symbol or gets to use the official symbol, then automatically their official funds, etc., will come or will be used by that group only. Simple. Uh, then I have a question. If Samajwadi Party becomes a national party, then J&K party will change its symbol or no. So okay. So one question that I have is Samajwadi Party and J&K Panthers have the same symbol. If Samajwadi Party becomes a national party, then what will happen? Then their symbol will be used by Samajwadi Party only throughout the country. Within Jammu and Kashmir, J&K Panthers will continue to use that symbol, but apart from that, in the entire country, only Samajwadi Party will be able to use that symbol. That is what will happen. That is what happened with BSP also. Bahujan Samajwadi Party did become a national party. Their symbol was reserved for them throughout the country, but Assam Gan Parishad used that symbol within Assam even then. Then I have a question. If BSP and Assam Gan Parishad both fight election in third state, then what will happen? Then you have to go to Election Commission of India and take permission. It then becomes a first come, first serve basis. Simple. Okay. Perfect. Now comes topic number 5 that we have. The fifth topic that we want to discuss is the virtual currency by RBI. Now, this virtual currency concept of the RBI is something that was in the news quite a lot. Before that, let me quickly take up a very quick comment that I keep on getting. It's a comment that I'm getting from the first question that we discussed. Many of you are commenting Ecuador is now not a member of OPEC. Yes, the question that we discussed was a previous year question from UPSC in 2009. In 2009, that question was asked when Ecuador was a member. Now it is not a member. So that is why this question was right then, not right now. So the first question that we discussed, which of the following is a member of OPEC? Ecuador was the answer because the question was asked by UPSC in 2009. So at that time it was a member. Now it is not. So let's come ahead. Now, what is virtual currency? Many people still confuse this with cryptocurrency. Please remember, virtual currency, cryptocurrency are not the same. They are not the same in any way. Virtual currency will be Indian rupee only, which has the backing of the Reserve Bank of India. Thus, that as the name suggests, it will be in virtual form. It will be in online form, as simple as that. It can be called as the e-rupee. It can be called as the e-rupee, as simple as that. Now, this has not been launched by RBI so far. Please do remember this. There was an article in the newspaper recently that the RBI is planning to launch this e-rupee very, very soon. Now, there are some countries around the world that have already launched their virtual currency. Please try and understand this. How is it important? Why is it important? Let me give you a very interesting example. When the coronavirus crisis started, when the pandemic hit, the government of India announced that we are giving 500 rupees in the bank account of poor people, right? Do you remember? The Prime Minister announced that we are spending or sending 500 rupees to everyone's bank account, the poor people. Now, this money that was actually given to the poor people, this was government's effort to help those people to buy food, essential medicines, etc., maybe for their children's education, right? Now let's take an example. What if some families, males in those families, took out this money, and rather than using it for essential medicine, they bought alcohol from that? Do you think it would have happened? It would have not happened. That rather than actually spending this money on medicine or essential commodities, they would have bought alcohol or something else. Is it a possibility? Is it not a possibility? It is a possibility. It happens. Especially in the poor households in India, it does happen. Now imagine, the government of India sends 500 rupees to a household, and that 500 rupee is a special kind of rupee. Why? It can only be used on certain shops, only medicine shop, only ration shop, and only maybe mobile recharge shop. It will not be accepted anywhere else. Would that solve the problem or not? Because now the government can actually decide, or government can actually ensure that this money will be used for this specific purpose only. This is what can happen with virtual currency. Virtual currency or e-rupee will be a virtual kind of a rupee which you can only utilize at intended purposes. This is what many nations have actually done, and this is what the RBI also is now planning to do. Now, this is just one example of what I'm telling you. It's not that all virtual currency will be like this only. It's not that government will now decide how much money do you spend, where do you spend money, nothing like that. But this is just an application that some kind of virtual rupee can be made in such a way that you cannot use it everywhere. You can only use it at some specific applications, number one. Secondly, this will also ensure that RBI does not have to keep printing money. See, printing of money, printing of rupees, etc., it is something that costs money to the government, number one. Secondly, you also know keeping physical money with you has some danger of robbery, etc., people coming and stealing. You see the bank robberies that happen, ATMs, people go with weapons, etc., they try to rob the ATM. All that is because of physical currency. If you take all of that out of the equation, if there is no physical currency left, if it is only online virtual currency that will only work with some kind of a pin that you are given, that will solve all that problem. The problem of fake currency notes will also be solved. So there will not be any fake currency notes as such. That is what the idea of the virtual currency is. It is a currency that will be backed by the RBI. It is a currency that will be much better used if the government wants. They can decide its applications also. The government can target people if they want to help the poor people, especially with that currency. This is called CBDC. The full form is Central Bank Digital Currency or Digital Rupee. Please do remember, this has not started in India so far. The idea has been in discussion for a long time now. It will start soon, but other countries have already launched it. RBI says that we might have two types of e-rupee or two types of virtual currency. One is retail and one is wholesale. Meaning that retail ones, just like you can use it for phone recharge, for buying of stuff, for online shopping, etc. That is retail. Wholesale means when you're using it in bulk. For example, buying, or when bank transact from one bank to the other bank, buying and selling of government securities, etc. So when you're doing it in a much larger scale, bank to bank transaction, RBI to bank transaction, that will be wholesale. Retail will be common retail transaction, like you and me buying stuff, etc. online. Now the RBI plans is to ensure that this virtual currency helps people in transactioning in a much better manner without having any physical money involved in between. Now, many of you who are writing in the chat that it will actually lead to problem of cyber crimes, etc. Yes, that is a problem. Any new technology, be it virtual currency, be it any new technology that the government or private organizations are trying to adopt will have its dangers. This will also have its danger of, can it be hacked? Can it be used for some kind of crimes? It can happen. Obviously, it can. But the fear that it will be hacked should not stop us from actually adopting new technologies. If you are fearful that the new technology that you are actually going to adopt can be hacked, then you just have to work better at it. The solution is not that we cannot really have, or we cannot have a situation, or we cannot have new technologies coming up. Now, there are, as I said, RBI is still not launching this. They have said there are two types of this: retail and wholesale. Retail are the ones that are meant for common people, private sector, etc., for buying stuff, selling stuff, etc. And the wholesale will be the one that will be in form of government securities when huge money transactions are taking place. The reality of this kind of a currency is, please understand, this is not very different from your money in your account. For example, if you have 1 lakh rupees in your account, nothing will change. Nothing will change absolutely. Just that the physical notes might go out of circulation. As simple as that. So for example, if you want to go to, let's say, ATM, and you want to take out money, physical notes will not come out. It might really transfer some kind of a message in your phone, or some kind of a message in your account, that 500 rupees cash have now come up, which you can use wherever you want with the help of certain pins. Now, this will not replace cash. The cash will be there. How the applications are different as compared to today's day-to-day currency, we'll have to see that when the RBI comes out of it. In common man's life, not many changes will happen because of this. You can say it is very similar to UPI only. See, transactions of rupee from one place to other will be like UPI only. But the point is, today, we, at the end of the day, if, let's assume, RBI has printed 16 lakh crore of rupee, if let's say this is the currency in circulation right now, that means these many notes exist in the Indian market. This much currency does exist in the Indian market right now. Replacing that, to actually take that out of circulation, that will be replaced by e-currency, that is e-rupee. How will that happen in the long run? That remains to be seen, how the RBI actually rolls it out. Many countries, as I said, have adopted this. China, Ukraine, Sweden, Saudi Arabia, etc. have implemented this already. Countries such as India, Australia, Canada are still working on this. This is mainly helpful to the government. As I said earlier as well, two main helps that the government will get out of it. First main help, the government can now have very targeted delivery of help to the people. If the government is giving you 1,000 rupees, then they can actually ensure that you are using it in a correct manner. I'll give you one more example, okay, so that you can understand an application. As you know, we have the right to education in India right now, okay? For 2-3 minutes, please don't write anything. Please try and understand what I'm trying to tell you. We have the right to education right now. Now, what is right to education? Right to education means that government says up till class 8th at least you will have free education in government schools. You can send your child to government school and you will not really have to pay anything, right? Let's take an example, and this is a very real example of what can happen. Let's assume that I am a parent and I don't have much money. I want to send my children to school. Now, I really like a private school. Please understand this example. I like a private school, okay? But this private school has a fees of rupees 1,000. Okay? This private school has a fee of rupee 1,000. Now, I, as a parent, I can afford 600 rupees. It's not that I don't have any money. I have 600 rupees, but I want help of 400 more. Now, let's assume the government thinks that if children are sent to government schools, even then the government is spending some money, right? In the government school also, government teachers are paid a salary, government staff is paid a salary. So government thinks, rather than asking people to send their children to government school, why not give every parent 500 rupee voucher? Understand this example. Government thinks, why not give everyone a 500 rupee voucher? What will be the voucher be? You can take this voucher, go to the school. If the school has a fees of rupees 1000, give 500 voucher and 500 rupees from your side, and the fees is done. Don't you think this is a better idea? Why to force people to send their children to government school only, if government should just give them voucher 300, 400, 500 rupees, that whichever school you want you can send, so that the people have choice. Because right now, under right to education, people don't have a choice. They have to send their children to government school only. What if I don't like a government school? What if I want my children to go to a private school? The problem with this, the loophole here can be that this money can be misused. The problem is that this can be misused. This is where virtual currency comes into the picture. This is where this e-rupee comes in helpful. Why? The government can make the voucher in such a manner that this can only be accepted in schools. This can only be accepted in schools. Nowhere else can it be accepted. Then it will serve the purpose. This is also an application of the virtual currency that we can have in the future. Now, please understand, this has not been launched by the RBI so far. So there are still a lot of details that are still not very clear about this. So this question of how will it work, what are the applications, this will have to be seen once it rolls out. But right now, it has not been rolled out in India. Right now, the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, is still an idea on paper, and the RBI is still working towards rolling it out. Those who are asking how is it different from UPI, transaction will be the same. But at the end of the day, if you have to deposit money in your account today, when you go and give cash to your account, you have to give notes. Those notes automatically will go out of circulation now. They will be replaced by virtual currency. That is the idea. UPI, etc., is a way of transactioning. UPI is not currency. UPI is a way that you are transferring money from one place to other. The form of money will be changed itself. That is what e-currency will be. Now, RBI is the one that is thinking of launching it. It will be issued by the RBI. How? RBI will try and replace the cash that we have. They will replace the cash in the bank account, they'll replace the cash in the ATMs, etc. It will happen in a very gradual manner. How will it happen? The guidelines are still to come out, but knowing the government, it can happen tomorrow at 8 p.m. also, you don't know. But this idea is still very gradual, and it will have to be seen how it actually rolls out. Now, let's see if you can answer this question. Let's try and read this question, answer this one. Have you read this? Okay. Let me change the options here because the options don't seem to be correct. Or, okay, let the options be the same. Tell me the incorrect one. Okay. The options are the same, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 3, all of the above. You have to tell the incorrect one. Okay. Not the correct one, incorrect one. Now let me give you the options. 38% people got this correct. The answer here is B. 2 and 3 are actually wrong. Second statement I think was very easy. We have been saying time and time again, RBI plans to launch the currency, not finance ministry. RBI is the one that will be launching the currency, not the finance ministry. It is the RBI. Second is wrong. Third is also wrong. It does not necessarily need internet connection for all the transactions, because if it requires internet connection for all transactions, then it will be very, very difficult. So these virtual currencies can be exchanged even without internet connections as well. That is what the idea is moving forward. 2 and 3 are actually wrong. The first statement is correct. It is the same as sovereign currency, meaning it has the same value as the rupee note that you have. So it has the same value as a physical currency. It will be backed up by a guarantee of the RBI. Now, the last topic that we have, before that, I'll quickly take up the questions that I have. Difference between e-rupee and UPI system. UPI is a system of exchanging payment. E-rupee is a currency itself, so it's not the same. Then I have a question. Virtual currency, does this also include other facilities like saving account, credit facility, etc.? How will it affect banking system? Everything will remain the same. Banking system, saving account, everything will remain the same. Just that you will not have physical notes, as simple as that. Does that you will not have physical notes? Nothing else would change. Then I have a question. Do tokenization and e-rupee the same? Tokenization is something entirely different. Tokenization means saving your card details in the form of some kind of passwords or tokens. So that is not the same. Tokenization and token basically means saving your essential details in the form of a token so that they cannot be stolen. That's more about data privacy. That has got nothing to do with e-rupee as such. Perfect. The last topic that we have for today's webinar is a revamp of the parliamentary standing committees that took place. Now, the parliamentary standing committees, as you know, I'm sure all of you would have read in Indian polity, there are multiple parliamentary standing committees for various purposes. They serve a lot of important purposes, such as the discussion on the bills, discussion on various debates, topics, etc. These have been revamped very recently. When I say revamped, means basically the members have been changed. When this revamp happened, the opposition members are obviously not happy with it. Why? They say that no seats for oppositions have actually been given in important parliamentary committees. So they say that now the parliamentary committees are just the mouthpieces of the government only, and opposition members are not given a place in the important parliamentary committees. Now, this gives us a chance to look into what are parliamentary committees, how do they work, and why is it that the opposition is saying that we have not been given a chance. Now, I'm sure you have read in Indian polity, there are multiple types of parliamentary committees that we have. There are standing committees, there are ad hoc committees. Standing committees are the ones which are permanent. Standing committees are the ones which are permanent, which are always there. On the other hand, we have ad hoc committees. Ad hoc committees are those which are only for specific purpose. Once that purpose is fulfilled, those committees are then dissolved. The idea of having parliamentary committees goes back to British Parliament. The British Parliament have the committees of members of Parliament, committees of LP. In India, if you look at Indian Constitution, Article 105, which talks about privileges of MPs, and Article 118 also talks about how the Parliament would function. Under the rules of conduct of Parliament, we have the parliamentary committees. The parliamentary committees do a lot of very, very important functions. For example, we have finance committees, we have the estimates committee inside of it, we have the committee of public undertakings, we have the public account committee. All these committees have a very, very important purpose. They set the agenda for the parliament, they scrutinize the bills of the government, they give a lot of important feedback also to the government. It depends on the government whether or not they want to accept that feedback and inculcate that or not. But for a very long time, these parliamentary committees have actually allowed the opposition and the government to work together on very, very important issues. I'll give you an example. A lot of times it might happen, let's assume that there is a member of parliament from the BJP. Okay. Now, let's assume this member of parliament does not like a bill introduced by his own party. Let's assume BJP introduced a bill. A member of parliament from BJP does not like the bill. But even then, he would vote yes because of anti-defection law. If he does not vote yes, then he will be kicked out of the parliament. So he'll have to vote yes because the whip of the party actually applies to the parliament. Whip of the party means if the party says vote yes, they will have to vote yes. However, when this same member is sitting in a parliamentary committee, they're having a parliamentary committee meeting. In a parliamentary committee meeting, the whip of the party does not apply. In the parliamentary committee meeting, they can speak their mind. So they can engage with the opposition members. They can also decide what is the best way forward, how to take a particular agenda forward, how to make the best kind of a law. That is how parliamentary committees are important. They try to prepare agenda for the meetings. Not just this, the parliamentary committees also have a lot of power. They can summon the people. The parliamentary committees can actually summon people before themselves. This is something, unfortunately, that we don't really see very often in India. If you follow American news, you will see that American Senate, that is the upper house of American Parliament, they summon a lot of people. They ask the people to come and be a witness and talk about their point of view. They are questioned by the Senate. American Senate has called Mark Zuckerberg for questioning. They have called Sundar Pichai for questioning. They have called so many people for questioning. In India, the Indian parliamentary committees do have the power to summon, and they can actually ask questions about different kind of a law, about different types of policy measures. In fact, they actually can issue summon like a court, meaning that when they issue a summon, person has to come. It has the power of a civil court. So parliamentary committees are extremely, extremely important. What has happened, why is it in the news is, and why we're discussing this is, 22 committees were announced recently, and Congress has the post of chairperson in only one committee. Now, the problem is, in most of these committees, usually the pattern is opposition parties are given a lot of positions. Usually opposition parties are given positions of heads of many committees because these committees are not binding on the government anyway. But they at least allow the opposition members to make their own point of view. They at least allow the opposition members to have space for discussion, and that is why the Congress and the opposition members are not happy about it. There are various parliamentary committees. Some of the most important ones are financial committees. Let me ask you some questions very quickly. Tell me in the chat, how many members do we have in the estimates committee, by the way? Let's see how many of you remember. Very disappointing. Few of you are giving correct answers, many of you are giving wrong answers. Estimates committee, 30 members, all from Lok Sabha. Very disappointing. Many people are giving wrong answers. Okay, what is public account committee? How many members in the public account committee? Let's come to this. Public account committee, yes, 22. 22, 15 from Lok Sabha, 7 from Rajya Sabha. Committee on Public Undertakings, again 22. 15 from Lok Sabha, 7 from Rajya Sabha. These three are called financial committees because they are the ones who are related to financial matters. In these committees, as you know, minister cannot be a member, and they have a 1-year term. After 1-year term is over, the members are changed again. Then we have department-related standing committees also. There are department-related standing committees. I hope all of you have heard about this. Now, what are department-related standing committees? As the name suggests, they are related to certain department. I'll give you an example. Let's assume railway minister introduces a bill in the parliament, something about railways, that we want to make new changes in railways or something like that. Now, In the parliament, we will have a railway department standing committee. That committee will look into that bill. They will advise changes if they need to be made in the bill, and then the government will decide if they want to actually take up the bill forward or not. So department related standing committees means related to certain departments of the government. Their main purpose is to look into the bills that are related to that particular business that these committees actually are handling. The department related standing committees, as you know, they were formed in 1993, 17 of them, and they were increased to 24. Okay, tell me very quickly here also, how many members do we have in each department related standing committee? Okay, I already have the answer. Good job. 31 members. Okay. 31 members in each of the parliamentary standing committees. Out of these 31, 21 are from Lok Sabha and 10 are from Rajya Sabha. It is written here, as you can see. The ad hoc committees are the ones, as I said, ad hoc means which is not permanent, which is temporary. Ad hoc committees are the ones that are formed for one specific purpose. For example, let's say a bill is introduced and the government or the opposition wants a discussion on that bill by a specific committee. A short committee will be formed just to discuss that bill. Once the discussion is over, the committee will be resolved. That is called an ad hoc committee. So ad hoc committees are the ones that are usually formed for one specific purpose. They can be joint committees of both the houses members combined, or select committee means having one single house members. These committees are helpful. Why? See, discussing a bill in the entire house, Lok Sabha has so many members, Rajya Sabha has so many members, hundreds of members discussing one bill is very, very difficult. So it is always advisable that for discussing a bill, a smaller group is much, much better. That is where the committees are very helpful. So committees improve the effectiveness. They also coordinate with the ministries very, very importantly. And they make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. Why? Because in most of these committees, there is representation from almost all parties. It's not that committees will have members from only one party. It is tried that almost every political party has certain representation, almost every committee. And that is why these committees carry out a lot of business and they help the government in making the bills better. These committees also ask experts to come in from outside and help them out with making of a better bill. This is how committees are different as compared to normal parliament. As I said, in committees, no whip of the party applies, so members can speak freely. Members can actually have confidential meetings also in the committee, so that they can actually communicate, they can negotiate if two political parties don't agree on a common point. All these kind of things are very, very advantageous, and that is why the committees should be taken very, very seriously. In fact, this is one of the major criticism of the current government also, that the current government that we have does not send most of the bills to the committees. The current government that we have, mostly what they do is they just introduce the bill, quickly pass it within a few minutes without sending to the committees, which is something that has been perceived as a very negative kind of a proceeding. Ideally, the bills should be given to committees where they should be discussed, and then it should go ahead. Now, on this question, let's see if you can answer this. Read this very, very carefully, and then we will take up the question. I hope all of you have read this. If yes, I'll start the time. Your 30 seconds start now. And your time is up. 54% people are correct. The answer here is D. All the three given statements here are absolutely correct. I thought it's a pretty simple, straightforward question. We have discussed all these three statements in the last 10 minutes or so. Article 105, 118 talk about the parliamentary privileges. Financial committees include Accounts Estimates Committee, Public Account Committee, and the Committee of Public Undertakings. And 17 were formed in 1993, and then 24 are there right now. But it was initially formed as 17 committees in 1993. This is what we had in today's current affairs webinar. I'll take up very quickly two more questions that I have in front of me, and then we will end the session. I have a question. Can Congress even be considered as an opposition? Congress is the opposition. Why don't consider it? By definition, any political party sitting against the ruling party is the opposition party. So I don't think that you can't call the Congress the opposition. They are the opposition. Yes, they are pretty weak right now, but by definition, they are the opposition parties. Okay. First option, second part. Okay, I'll just quickly go there. They draw authority from Article 105 and 118. So basically, these articles are the ones that talk about the parliamentary privileges. That is, the privileges that are given to the members of parliament, and they talk about the fact that they can make their rules for conduct of business, under which the committees are formed. That is why. Perfect. Perfect. This brings us to the end of this webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be back soon with the next webinar, again 8:30 p.m. As you know, this webinar happens Tuesdays and Thursdays for a couple of hours. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.